with his colleagues.
Second reading, consideration, procedural amendment, and third reading. And we are convinced that this Parliament, guided by the Supreme Court recent decision in Justice Abdullahi versus the Attorney General, the 1992 Constitution, which is the ground norm of our country, which is the source where all laws get their validity, the majority, following the walkout of the minority, did not constitute a voting quorum as required by Article 104 of the 1992 Constitution and the lucid judgment of the Supreme Court in the Justice Abdullahi matter. So for those of you who are doubting and want to know what guided the decision of the minority caucus, we simply walk out to disable them from having, to quote the words of the Supreme Court, a voting quorum. They are simply and were simply less than 137. At least I'm using 137 because conspicuously everybody in the world and Ghana know the Honorable Adjoa Safo was not present, and therefore you had 137. Additionally, we know that there was an ambulance within the presence of Parliament, but the person who is purported to have been in the ambulance was not present in the chamber for purpose of exercising a vote. Therefore, every decision that they took with 136 flies as a sin against the ruling of the Supreme Court. And for emphasis, I'm going to read page 12 of the Supreme Court ruling, when it said, there is a second quorum provision found in Article 1041. This provision applies specifically and exclusively to voting to determine a matter in Parliament. Article 1041 provides as follows. I'm quoting the ruling. Except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of majority of members present and voting with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. During second reading, you did not have half of members of Parliament present. During the consideration stage, you did not have half of members of Parliament present, per the Supreme Court ruling. And during the third reading, you did not have, during third reading, you did not have half of the members of Parliament, more than half of the members of Parliament present and voting. Therefore, those of you who are celebrating with them that LEVI have been passed and accordingly passed, your excitement will be short-lived. Immediately after this press briefing, we intend to file to question the legitimacy of the decision of less than one half of members of Parliament taking a decision to approve LEVI at second reading following our walkout, and at third reading, which is required. For those of you who want to appreciate it, Article 104 provides expressly, except otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting with at least half of the members in Parliament present. Was half of the members of Parliament present when they took it through third reading? Our Constitution, the framers, provided an elaborate roadmap for the consideration of bills. It's been advertised or taken through agency. It's been accompanied by an explanatory memorandum, but it's been subjected to a debate on its principles. And for the record, the minority at committee did not support e-levy. It took the chairman of the committee a custom vote for us to lose to that custom vote at the level of committee. The Constitution provides that a bill be subjected to third reading. The supposed e-levy bill was subjected to a third reading with less than one half of the members of parliament present and voting. A charade as I have described it. So we are very convinced that there is no e-levy and is working on nothing, because we are keeping the videos and the recordings as we left. And you don't expect to build something on nothing and expect it to stand. We simply, as I have said, when they were told that the ruling of the Supreme Court was an absurdity, many of you didn't appreciate it, now you do. It means that you needed at least 138 for decision, any decision, whether on amendment, whether on third reading or during consideration stage, that the Constitution so elaborately provides for. So we didn't want to be associated with it. But at the level of the principle, we shared with the Ghanaian people our objection and rejection of e-levy. We stand same at the same level. So those of you who want to go further, even to the Supreme Court ruling, and still have some lingering doubts, even as we prepare to challenge the matter in the Supreme Court, a judicial determination has been made on Article 104 of the Constitution, clear cut. Anything to the contrary is a sin to Article 104, the 1992 Constitution, and the ruling of the Supreme Court of Ghana. Remember, when they walked out on a procedural motion of 137, claiming a minister had been asked to stay out from the voice vote, or claiming the Honorable Asidin Ketia was present somewhere, their intention was what we have also now intended. Their intention was that they said that we're 137. They are less than 137, and that is what mandated them to go to court to question our decision on 30th November, saying that you could not have a decision with less than 138, with their 138 interpreted to include the first deputy speaker. I should also let the Ghanaian public appreciate that this morning we walked in with some difficulty because of the matter of asem. He was essentially in court, and therefore as a minority at that material point in time, we were 136, pending whatever decision the Supreme Court and the other courts would have taken to guide our position. But we had advised his lawyers, who were also further going to file a stay of execution at the Cape Coast Court. We're still waiting for signals from the lawyers to know where we are, so that we're not in contempt of Parliament, or he was not in contempt of Parliament, following what the last decision was. So, in summary, ladies and gentlemen of the press, we are convinced that the majority of less than 137 in the chamber conducting business only proceeded on illegal and unconstitutional business, which is a sin on Article 104 as interpreted by the Supreme Court as a nullity in the Justice Ablai versus the Supreme Court. We call it a charade. We are convinced about it. The Justice Ablai versus Attorney General. And as I've said, there is a judicial determination on what constitutes a voting quorum. The Supreme Court drew their own distinction between what they call a general quorum or a debate quorum and a voting quorum, which voting quorum is a decision quorum. We are convinced beyond shadow of doubt that Parliament did not have the numbers to take any decision that should bind on Parliament and bind on the Ghanaian people. I'll be happy to answer a few questions from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leader. So let's just see. We'll start. You mention your name, and then we'll go. So let's start this way. Parker. We'll start with Parker, then the lady, and then the gentleman. The three of you. Then we'll go that way.
Okay, Right, so the majority of us says there's no issue of quorum because at the time the speaker put that question, even though you, the leader, had left, some of the members were still in the chamber. So it can be calculated as being part of the members in the chamber. And then two.
Everyone, proceed your questions. So when they went to amendment and consideration and third reading, our members were present. That's no issue. We have served notice that we're not going to take part. Third reading were not there. Consideration were not there. Procedural motion were not there. Those were all decisions. And colleagues, again, let me take you down to Justice Ablai and the Supreme Court ruling. And for those of you who still have doubt, the gentleman, hear what the Supreme Court. This question appears to stem from the fact that pursuant to Article 102, the general quorum of Parliament, which I referred to, is determined without counting the person presiding. But as previously explained, this general quorum provision is not the provision that governs quorum for the purpose of voting in Parliament. And distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media and my colleagues, hear this. Hear this. Hear the Supreme Court. It said that is dealt with under Article 104, which says the voting quorum at 1/2 of the membership of Parliament. Thus, I'm quoting, read together with Article 104.1. The quorum contemplated in Article 102 should be properly understood to mean the quorum for all other business of Parliament. Then it says quorum for voting, Article 104.1. That number cannot be less than 138. As poor as our maths and arithmetic is, less Ajua Safo is 137, less 1/2 of Parliament is equal to a charade of a decision that they think that is constitutionally valid.
Continue with your question.
The second leg to it, I mean, you just told us, informed the House that you are 136, 136. We know the standard is clear. When the motion is a tie, it's lost. So why didn't you take a decision to work out knowing very well that if you just stayed, you can have ensured that the motion was lost?
We work based on intel. There was one of our colleagues, and we didn't want to see a sick person being forced into Parliament in that state. There was somebody in an ambulance that is sensitive to his medical condition and insensitive to medical advice. They were prepared to bring him at 137. And that would have meant that they could walk away with a victory of 137, 136, given that the honorable member for Asinov was now returning back to Parliament from court, and we didn't know how early he would arrive to be able to boost our numbers. So get it right, and we still were filing the stay of execution, which now has been properly and adequately filed. Therefore, the investor community should be interested in holding this government accountable. They said that I indicated that our country is tottering at the precipice of bankruptcy, and I shared this position when Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia said that he had the key to arrest the depreciation of the dollar. He thought it was an easy he will arrest the depreciation of the cedi. He thought it was an easy walk just stopping trotro between Wulugu and Savulugu. Then he could arrest the depreciation of the cedi against the dollar.
Yes.
The majority leader has your comment that and I told you the house was informed
So what you have on your screens now are live shots from Parliament. Clearly the minority raising questions and confirming now that they may be testing the law. They refer to some constitutional provisions as grounds on which they will be proceeding to challenge the decision that resulted in the passage of the e-levy a couple of hours ago. Let's bring you excerpts of that constitutional provision that the minority leader was referring to, which has got to do with a case involving one private legal practitioner, Justice Abdullahi, and then that interpretation came through from the Supreme Court. So you have excerpts of the Supreme Court ruling indicating Article 102 of the Constitution, indicating that a quorum in Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. Now, that is the non-voting quorum. But the explanation from the Supreme Court also indicates that there's the Article 104, which requires that, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present.
On the issue of quorum for voting under Article 1041, we've been here before. When the budget was rejected by a one-sided House, the Speaker then traveled. When he returned in his ruling, he had mentioned that the issue of quorum was never raised when that decision was being taken. And today we are here. The argument is that even though we are arguing along the same lines, nobody on the floor raised the issue of quorum. How do you address that?
We've been asked to respect rulings of Supreme Court. We are just respecting what the Supreme Court have said, that for any decision in Parliament, including subjecting a bill to consideration stage, including amendment, including matters of procedure, and more importantly, the third reading of bill, you will require one half of members of Parliament present. When we took a decision with 137, you know what they said, that we could not. So they can. We leave the answer to the court that will proceed to.
Two more.
I'll take two more and then we are done.
Okay, we are not even. Oh, okay. Then please be snappy. Yes.
So, Leader, I would like to know. Leader, how are you going to navigate this issue? Through a substantive motion, through a court action?
Said we are filing in the court.
And yes, the Speaker has no voting right. But back to the days of the disapproval and approval of the budget statement, it was done by the first Deputy Speaker. Now the substantive Speaker is in the chair. So how are you going to scale this delicate balance?
What we know is that the Speaker presiding has no vote. He didn't add any number to their number. What we know is that they were less than 137, and you cannot in Ghana pay the Supreme Court ruling except when you want to sin against the 1992 Constitution and the Supreme Court ruling that you so probably they have to go and come again on e-levy when they have good numbers. But we do not think that as at today, they had sufficient numbers to take a decision and to declare that they have passed LEVI. We will question this decision in court on the basis of earlier ruling and on the basis of the fact that our conduct was called to question when we were 137. We were told that you can't take a decision with 137. Yet they can take with less than 137. We thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Cow stomach?
Yeah.
Hold on, let me wash my hands.
Just
good. Ready.
ready.